Tony's here from Tony'sPicks.com with our 38 college football pick show here for Saturday. If you're looking for my best bets, click the link in the description. Let's get this one started. Georgia Tech and Syracuse college football pick. This one here is on Saturday. All right, Georgia Tech 2-0 after their 35-12 home win to Georgia State. Yellow Jackets produced 499 offensive yards, 225 rushing for 6.6 yards per run. They held the Panthers to 360 yards total, 150 rushing for 5.2 yards a carry. Georgia Tech held Georgia State to 3 of 12 on third down. Haynes King, 24 of 29 for 275 yards with 2 touchdowns and a pick, averaging 9.5 yards per pass attempt. Syracuse down 1-0 after their 28-22 home win to Ohio. Orange put up 480 yards offensively, 4.2 yards per rush. They held the Bobcats to 2 of 11 on third down with 436 yards for the game. Syracuse did allow 255 rushing yards, 6.5 yards per run. Colin McCord hit 27-39 for 354 yards, 4 touchdowns and a pick. He averaged 9.1 yards per pass attempt. Georgia Tech defending well, limiting the big plays in the passing game, just 6.6 yards per pass attempt. They have gone under in both games. Last year, they held Syracuse to just 22 points in the win. This year, the total is 9 points higher than last. I know there's a quarterback change on the Syracuse side, but do like the third down defense here by the Orange, encouraging play Georgia Tech and Syracuse under 61. Kansas State and Tulane college football pick for Saturday. Kansas State 1-0 after their 41-6 home win to FCS Tennessee Martin. Kansas State finished 9-4 last year for head coach Chris Klieman, who's in his 6th season with the program. The team returns 4 starters to the offense, 8 to the defense. They put up 36 points per game in 2023, 4.9 yards per run. Completed passes were 59%, 7 yards per pass attempt. On defense, the Wildcats allowed 23 points per game, while 159 rushing for 5.1 yards per attempt. Pass defense was a strong suit here. The running backs returned, but the offensive line inexperienced. Avery Johnson at quarterback completed 56% of his passes last year with limited action as a freshman. He did play in the bowl game and a threat to run. Tulane came off the 52-0 home win to FCS Southeast Louisiana last week. The Green Wave finished 11-3 last year. John Summerall, first year with the program. Willie Fritz has moved on. They put up 25 points a game last year, 367 yards of offense. They rushed for 4.1 yards per carry, 8.1 yards per pass attempt. Tulane limited opponents to 21 points per game, 3.6 yards per carry. They allowed only 6.7 yards per pass attempt. The Green Wave must replace quarterback Michael Pratt. They get back their running back, but inexperienced at the receiver position. Key contributors are back on defense. Sophomore Darian Mensah starts at quarterback. He went 10 of 12 for 205 yards with big plays last week. He had 2 touchdown passes. He won the quarterback battle over Oregon transfer Ty Thompson. It's a tough spot on the road here for an inexperienced Kansas State quarterback facing a strong Tulane defense. Mensah's opening performance encouraging. The Wildcats' run defense a concern. Play Tulane +10. Bowling Green and Penn State college football pick here for Saturday. Bowling Green 1-0 after a 41-17 home win to FCS Fordham. The Falcons finished at 7-6 last season for head coach Scott Loeffler. In his 6th season, the team put up only 25 points per game in 2023, 4.2 yards per run. They threw for only 173 yards a game, 6.3 yards per pass attempt. Third down conversions were poor. Defensively, they limited opponents to 24 points a game, 4.1 yards per rush. Bowling Green held opposing quarterbacks to 59% completions, 6.8 yards per pass attempt. The offensive line is experienced and transfers will receive roles. Connor Bazelak returns at quarterback. He completed 60% of his throws last year, 6.9 yards per pass attempt. Penn State 1-0 after their 35-12 road win at West Virginia. The Lions gained 457 yards, 222 rushing for 5.3 yards a carry. They limited the Mountaineers to 246 yards for the game, 2.3 yards per rush, and shut down their passing game. Penn State forced 3 turnovers. Drew Allar hit 11 of 17 passes, 216 yards and 3 touchdowns. Bowling Green offense, the concern here, facing that Penn State defense. That road performance in West Virginia was impressive. The run game supporting Allar is the key here. Play Penn State -34.5. Troy and Memphis college football pick. This one here is on Saturday, Troy fell to 0-1 with their 28-26 home defeat to Nevada. The Trojans put up 391 yards, 190 rushing for 5.3 yards per rush. On defense, they surrendered 393 yards to the Wolfpack, 214 rushing for 8.5 yards per pass attempt. Goose Crowder, 20-30 passing for 201 yards, 6.7 yards per pass attempt. Memphis 1-0 after their 40-0 home win to FCS North Alabama. The Tigers went 10-3 last year for head coach Ryan Silverfield in his 5th season. The team put up 38 points a game last year, 4.6 yards per run. They threw for 303 yards, 8.2 yards per pass attempt. On defense, the team allowed 30 points and 452 yards per game. Opponents rushed for 4.7 yards per rush against them, 287 passing yards with 8.4 yards per pass attempt. Memphis defense makes it difficult to lay this big of a point spread unit. There is an improvement from the Tigers defense against FBS opponents, but must take these points here. The Trojans running game is encouraging in this spot. Play Troy plus 18.5. Pittsburgh and Cincinnati college football pick for Saturday. Pitt 1-0 after their 55-24 home win to Kent State. The Panthers put up 567 yards of offense, 201 rushing yards, 6.3 yards per run. Each team turned over twice. On defense, the Panthers held the Golden Flashes to 212 yards, 181 passing for 6.5 yards per run. Eli Holstein, 30-40 passing for 336 yards with 3 touchdowns and an interception. He averaged 8.4 yards per pass attempt. Cincinnati comes off the 38-20 home win to FCS Towson. Cincinnati was 3-9 last year for head coach Scott Satterfield, who enters his 2nd season. 8 starters return on offense with 7 to the defense. The team averaged only 20 points per game last year, 5 yards per pass attempt. Quarterback play was inaccurate and inefficient. On defense, they surrendered 31 points per game, 5.5 yards per run. Opponents threw for 230 yards on Cincinnati for 8.4 yards per pass attempt. Their top running back returns, as does their entire offensive line. Indiana transfer Brian Sorsby won the quarterback job and was efficient against his FCS opponent. Last year at Indiana, he completed 57% of his passes with 6.7 yards per pass attempt. The Bearcats' defense is what's in question here as they face their first FBS opponent of the year. The Panthers' run defense was strong in their opener. Offensively, they clicked on all cylinders in that opener. We'll take Pittsburgh here plus 2. Akron and Rutgers college football pick. This one here on Saturday. Akron 0-1 after their 52-6 road defeat at Ohio State. The Zips gained 177 yards with 47 rushing for 1.3 yards per carry. Defensively, they surrendered 404 yards to the Buckeyes with 170 rushing yards for 5.2 yards per carry. They were just 4 of 16 on 3rd down and had 3 turnovers. Taj Bullock 9 of 13 passing for 68 yards, 5.2 yards per attempt. Bullock did rush for 42 yards on 14 carries. Starting quarterback Ben Finley has a rib injury. He's questionable. Rutgers 1-0 after their 44-7 home win to FCS Howard. Rutgers finished at 7-6 in 2023. Greg Schiano has 7 starters returning on offense, 8 to the defense. They put up just 21 points per game last season, 4.1 yards per rush. Quarterback play was amongst the worst in the nation. On defense, they held opponents at 23 points per game, 4.1 yards per rush. They limited opposing quarterbacks at 59% completion rate, 6.2 yards per pass attempt. They have experience on the offensive line. Their defensive line returns key starters. Minnesota transfer Ethan Kalkmanis starts at quarterback. In 2 seasons at Minnesota, he averaged only 53% completion rate, 6.9 yards per pass attempt. He threw for 17 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. Last week, he averaged only 6.1 yards per pass attempt against Howard. Scarlet Knights' experience on the offensive line here will wear out the Zips. Akron in a tough spot after facing Ohio State last week and allowed over 5 yards per carry on the ground. The Zips did get in line to make 2 field goals against Ohio State. We'll take Akron and Rutgers over 38.5. Army and FAU college football pick for Saturday. Army 1-0 after their 42-7 home win to FCS Lehigh. The Black Knights finished at 6-6 for head coach Jeff Monken. The team returns 8 starters on offense with 3 to the defense. They put up just 17 points per game a year ago, 4.1 yards per carry. The team completed 47% of their passes, 6.4 yards per pass attempt. On defense, the Black Knights allowed 24 points per game with 5.2 yards per carry. Opponents completed 61% of their passes on Army with 7.6 yards per pass attempt. Bryson Daly lines up at quarterback. He saw action in 11 games last season, completing 50% of his passes with 5.8 yards per pass attempt. He averaged 4.6 yards per run. FAU is 0-1 after their 16-10 road defeat at Michigan State. The Owls produced 248 offensive yards, 132 rushing for 2.8 yards per carry. They went 2 of 15 on third down. On defense, FAU surrendered 293 yards to the Spartans offense with 4.8 yards per rush, only 4.8 yards per pass attempt. The team did force 3 turnovers but coughed up 2. Cam Fancher hit on 12 of 25 for 116 yards, only 4.6 yards per pass attempt. He did rush for 67 yards on 25 carries. Inefficient running there, took 7 sacks. Army looking to play that ball position game, keep the Owls defense on the field. We know that's their strategy. Maybe running it more this year. There will be lots of running by the Black Knights, no doubt. FAU allowed 4.8 yards per run, which is a concern in the spot. Daly has experience running the Black Knights offense. Play Army +4. Texas and Michigan college football pick for Saturday. Texas 1-0 after their 52-0 home victory to Colorado State. The Longhorns put up 545 yards, 190 rushing for 4.6 yards per rush. They held the Rams to 192 yards offensively with 3.1 yards per pass attempt and 3.7 yards per rush. Quinn Ewers 20 of 27 passing, 260 yards, 3 touchdowns a pick. Michigan now 1-0 after their 30-10 home win to Fresno State. The Wolverines gained 269 yards in the game, 148 rushing for 4.4 yards per rush. On defense, they allowed 244 yards to the Bulldogs with only 9 rushing yards, 6.5 yards per pass attempt. They held Fresno State to 2 of 11 on third down. Davis Warren went 15 of 25 for 118 yards with a touchdown and an interception. He averaged 4.7 yards per pass attempt, though. But Texas faced a bad defensive team in Colorado State. Respect the Wolverines' defensive effort here against Fresno State last week and the culture they built defensively over the past several seasons. We'll take Michigan here plus the points here, +7.5. Arkansas and Oklahoma State college football pick Saturday. Arkansas now 1-0 after their 70-0 home win to FCS Arkansas Pine Bluff. Arkansas finished at 4-8 last year for head coach Sam Pittman, who's feeling the hot seat. The Razorbacks returned 8 starters on offense, 8 to the defense. The team put up 24 points per game last year with 3.6 yards per rush. The passing game produced only 179 yards with 6.6 yards per pass attempt. On defense, the Razorbacks allowed 29 points and 4.4 yards per run. Opponents threw for 200 yards a game on Arkansas with 7.9 yards per pass attempt. Notable hire was Bobby Petrino as offensive coordinator. Taylon Green, well, he starts at quarterback, transferring in from Boise State. Green completed 57% of his passes last year, 8.3 yards per pass attempt. A threat to run as he rushed for 434 yards and 5.6 yards per pass attempt. Oklahoma State is 1-0 after their 44-20 home win to FCS South Dakota State. Mike Gundy returns for his 20th season as head coach. Team went 10-4 last year, returned 10 starters on offense, 9 to the defense. The Cowboys put up 30 points per game last year, 4.8 yards per rush. They threw for 274 yards, 6.8 yards per pass attempt. On defense, they surrendered 30 points a game and 445 yards as well. Opponents rushed for 4.6 yards a carry on the Cowboys with 275 yards passing, 8.8 yards per pass attempt. Alan Bowman completed 61% of his passes last year, 6.9 yards per pass attempt. He did struggle with 14 picks. He had a great performance in the opener against South Dakota State. Now, with these poor defensive numbers, it's going to be tough to lay over a touchdown with the Cowboys here. Bowman experienced at quarterback, but inefficient last year. Those picks are a concern. Of course, Bobby Petrino hire could make an impact for Arkansas and coaching up this dual threat quarterback in Green coming over from Boise. Play here Arkansas +7.5. All right, Cal and Auburn college football pick for Saturday. Cal 1-0 after their 31-13 home win to FCS UC Davis. The team finished 6-7 last year for head coach Justin Wilcox. Golden Bears returned 7 stars on offense, 8 to the defense. Cal put up 30 points per game in 2023, 4.4 yards per run. They threw for 226 yards a game, 6.7 yards per pass attempt. On defense, they allowed 34 points and 3.8 yards per rush. They gave up 282 yards passing with 7.7 yards per pass attempt. Fernando Martinez returns under center for his junior year. He completed 63% of his passes last year for 7.1 yards per pass attempt. He averaged 7.2 yards per pass attempt in the win against UC Davis last week with a touchdown. Auburn defeated Cal on the road last year 14-10. The Tigers are 1-0 in there after a 73-3 home win to FCS Alabama A&M. Auburn finished 6-7 a season ago for head coach Hugh Freeze. The team returns 9 starters on offense, 8 to the defense. They put up 25 points per game in 2023, nearly 5 yards per rush. Tigers threw for only 147 yards a game last year, 6.3 yards per pass attempt. On defense, they allowed 23 points a game, 4.5 yards per rush. They allowed 59% pass completion, 7.6 yards per pass attempt. Peyton Thorne returns for his senior season. Last year with Auburn, he completed 61% of his passes, 6.6 yards per pass attempt. He did produce a strong opener against his FCS opponent. California played Auburn tough last year. Thorne has struggled with downfield passing in his season last year and with Michigan State in 2022. This is an experienced Golden Bears team that showed the ability to get points on the board. Play here will be on Cal plus 13. Next one will be Jacksonville State. We're going to get to it right now. I've got the graphics set. Here we go. Jacksonville State and Louisville college football pick for action on Saturday. Jacksonville State 0-1 after their 55-27 home defeat to Coastal Carolina. Gamecocks put up 357 yards, 123 rushing for 4.1 yards per run. They had 3 turnovers, but just 1 of 10 on third down. Defensively, Jacksonville State allowed 552 yards to Chanticleers, 294 rushing, 5.2 yards per run, 258 yards passing, 12.9 yards per pass attempt. Logan Smothers hit 7 of 13 passes, 61 yards, only 4.7 yards per pass attempt. He rushed for 2.1 yards a carry. Louisville 1-0 after their 60-zip home win to FCS Austin Peay. The Cardinals finished 10-4 last year for head coach Jeff Brom. Team returns 7 starters on offense, 7 to the defense. They put up about 29 points per game last season with 4.4 yards per rush. Louisville completed 64% of their passes, 8 yards per pass attempt. On defense, the team held opponents at 23 points a game, 3.4 yards per rush. Cardinals held opposing quarterbacks at 57% completion rate, 7.5 yards per pass attempt. Texas Tech transfer Tyler Shaw is under center. He completed 60% of his passes last season, 6.7 yards per pass attempt. Shaw was productive last week against his FCS opponent. Poor offensive production really troubling for the Gamecocks. Third down conversions and sputtering the run game the concern. Louisville defended well last season and were run stoppers and defended the pass well. Play here will be Jacksonville State and Louisville under 58. Temple and Navy college football pick. This one here on Saturday. Temple 0-1 after their 51-3 road defeat at Oklahoma. The Owls put up 197 yards, 1.9 yards per rush. They went 4 of 13 on third down and had 4 turnovers. Forrest Brock 12 of 25 passing for 128 yards, 2 interceptions. They surrendered 378 yards to the Sooners with 220 rushing yards for 6.1 yards per rush. Navy 1-0 after their 49-21 home win to FCS Bucknell. The team finished 5-7 last year. Head coach Brian Newberry will have 7 starters back on offense and on defense. The midshipmen put up only 17 points per game in 2023, 4.2 yards per rush. They completed 50% of their passes for 6.1 yards per pass attempt. On defense, they allowed 24 points a game, 3.7 yards per rush. They did allow 67% completion rate, 8.2 yards per pass attempt. Blake Horvath returns under center after seeing action in 4 games last year. He averaged 4.9 yards per rush in 2023, completed 50% of his passes. Last week, he completed 2 touchdown passes with a pick. He rushed for 4.7 yards a carry. The Owls defense will struggle to contain this Navy option offense. They showed improvement last year and gave a good showing against Bucknell last week. The midshipmen had struggles to defend the pass last year. Temple have over 6 yards, gave up over 6 yards per rush to the Sooners last week, and in a tough spot to face this offensive system for the following week. Play Temple and Navy over 43. Baylor and Utah college football pick for action on Saturday. Baylor 1-0 after their 45-3 home win to FCS Tarleton State. The team finished 3-9 last year for head coach Dave Aranga, who enters his 5th year, and he's on the hot seat. The Bears returned 9 starters on offense, 9 to the defense. Baylor put up only 22 points per game last year, 3 yards per rush. They threw for 276 yards per game, 7.3 yards per pass attempt. Defensively, they allowed 36 points a game, 5.1 yards per rush. They allowed 66% completion rate, 8.9 yards per pass attempt. Why, for a Ranga defense, that is pretty bad. Daquan Finn transfers in from Toledo to start a quarterback. Last year, he completed 63% of his passes with 8.4 yards per pass attempt. He rushed for 563 yards, 4.6 yards per rush. Now Utah 1-0 after their 49-0 home win to FCS Southern Utah. The Utes finished 8-5 in 2023 for head coach Kyle Whittingham. Returning our 6 starters on offense, 9 to the defense. The team put up only 22 points per game last year with 4.2 yards per rush. They threw for only 165 yards, 6.4 yards per pass attempt. On defense, the Utes allowed 20 points per game, 3.1 yards per rush. They held opposing quarterbacks at 59% passing rate, 7.2 yards per pass attempt. Utah inexperienced at the running back position and offensive line. Cameron Rising returns under center after an injury cost him to miss last season. In 2 full seasons, he completed 64% of his passes, 7.8 yards per pass attempt. He was efficient in the win against Southern Utah. Line and running back inexperience a concern for the Utes. Finn is a dual-threat quarterback that can keep the Bears competitive here. 18 starters returned for Baylor. Player will be Baylor plus 14.5. South Carolina and Kentucky college football pick. This one here on Saturday. South Carolina 1-0 after their 23-19 home win against Old Dominion. Gamecocks gained only 288 yards, 174 rushing, 3 yards per carry. They did have a +3 turnover margin, but converted only 5 of 18 on 3rd down. Defensively, they allowed the Monarchs 305 yards, 108 rushing for 3.2 yards per rush. Lenore Sellers, a redshirt freshman, hit 10 of 23 passes for 114 yards. He did rush for 68 yards and a touchdown. Kentucky 1-0 after their 31-0 home win against Southern Miss. The Wildcats gained 317 yards, 148 rushing for 6.2 yards per carry. They limited the Golden Eagles to 131 yards with 5 rushing yards. The game was called in the 3rd quarter due to lightning. Brock Vandegrift, 12 of 18 passes for 169 yards, 9.4 yards per pass attempt. Georgia transfer had 3 touchdown throws and a pick. It's a tough environment for this South Carolina redshirt freshman. His inaccurate passing against Old Dominion a concern. They couldn't crack 300 yards of offense against ODU. Kentucky stuffed the Golden Eagles' ground attack. Play Kentucky -10. Get to Charlotte and North Carolina here in just a second. Here it is. Charlotte and North Carolina college football pick. This one here on Saturday. Charlotte 0-1 after the 30-7 home defeat to James Madison. The 49ers gained 324 offensive yards, 131 rushing, 4.2 yards per run. They had 3 turnovers, went 7 of 19 on 3rd down. On defense, Charlotte allowed 417 yards to the Dukes, 194 rushing for 4.7 yards per rush. The 49ers allowed 12.2 yards per pass attempt. Max Brown, a Florida transfer, completed 22 of 45 passes for 193 yards with a touchdown and 2 interceptions. He averaged only 4.3 yards per pass attempt. North Carolina 1-0 after their 19-17 road win at Minnesota. The Tar Heels gained 252 yards, 147 rushing for 3.6 yards a carry. They limited the Golden Gophers to 244 yards with 79 rushing yards, 2.4 yards per carry. Quarterback Max Johnson lost for the season Connor Harrell saw limited work, hit 2 of 4 for 34 yards and 8.2 yards per pass attempt. He showed accuracy in his freshman season and mop-up duty and played in their bowl game last year. Good defensive effort by the Tar Heels in their opener. Charlotte pass defense a concern, allowing those big plays. The run defense is a concern as well. Harrell has the game experience against West Carolina in their bowl game last year, playing North Carolina minus 22.5. Northern Illinois and Notre Dame college football pick. This one here on Saturday. Northern Illinois 1-0 after their 54-15 home win to FCS Western Illinois. The Huskies finished at 7-6 in 2023 for head coach Thomas Hammock, entering his 6th season. They returned 8 starters on offense and defense. NIU averaged 26 points a game last year, 5.3 yards per rush. They completed only 57% of their passes with 6.6 yards per pass attempt. Defensively, the Huskies held opponents to 21 points per game, 4.3 yards per rush. Opponents completed only 56% of their passes with 6.3 yards per pass attempt. They do return their top rushers, top receivers, along with 4 from the offensive line. Ethan Hampton is the starting quarterback. He has seen limited action the past 3 seasons in a backup role. He has a career 58% completion rate, 5.9 yards per pass attempt. He had a strong performance in the opener against FCS opponents. Notre Dame 1-0 after their 23-13 road win at Texas A&M. Fighting Irish put up 356 yards, 198 rushing for 5.8 yards per run. They had a +2 turnover margin. On defense, Notre Dame held the Aggies to 246 yards, 100 passing yards, 3.3 yards per pass attempt. Riley Leonard hit 18 of 30 for 158 yards, 5.3 yards per pass attempt. He rushed for 63 yards. Notre Dame's physicality on the offensive line will open plays in the running game as they average 5.8 yards per rush on an SEC defense on the road. Hampton's efficient work for the Huskies in the opener encouraging to their chances of getting some points up on the board. Play Northern Illinois and Notre Dame over 45. Eastern Michigan and Washington college football pick for Saturday. Eastern Michigan 1-0 after their 28-14 road win at UMass. The Eagles gained 375 yards, 134 rushing for 3.8 yards per carry. They allowed 329 yards to the Minutemen with 3.7 yards per rush, only 5.9 yards per pass attempt. Cole Snyder hit 17 of 29 for 241 yards and a touchdown. He had a rushing touchdown. Washington 1-0 after their 35-3 home win to FCS Weber State. Washington finished 14-1 last year. Jed Fish is in his first season with the school and will have 1 starter back on offense for the defense. The team put up 36 points per game last year with 4.3 yards per rush. The passing game produced 344 yards per game, 9 yards per pass attempt. On defense, the Huskies allowed 25 points per game, 4.7 yards per rush. Opponents completed 59% of their passes, 6.7 yards per pass attempt. Mississippi State transfer Will Rutger will start at quarterback. The past 3 seasons, he has a career 69% completion rate, 6.8 yards per pass attempt. He had a good debut last week against their FCS opponent. Cole Snyder, the transfer from Buffalo, will be effective for the Eagles. Lots of transfers here came in over this Huskies team that's inexperienced on both sides of the football. Rogers has experience as a quarterback, but not very efficient. Play Eastern Michigan +25. UMass and Toledo college football pick for Saturday. UMass 0-1 after their 28-14 home defeat to Eastern Michigan. The Minutemen gained 329 yards, 152 rushing for 3.7 yards per rush. On defense, they allowed 375 yards to the Eagles with 3.8 yards per run, but 241 passing yards, 8.6 yards per pass attempt. Tyson Omanchan hit 20 of 30 for 177 yards with only 5.9 yards per pass attempt. He took 6 sacks. Toledo now 1-0. A 49-10 home win to FCS Duquesne. The Rockets finished at 11-3 last season for head coach Jason Candle. The team returns 4 starters on offense and defense. They put up 29 points per game last season, 5.4 yards per rush, 28 yards passing, 7.9 yards per pass attempt. On defense, the Rockets held opponents at 21 points per game, 4 yards per rush. They held opponents at 54% completions, 6.3 yards per pass attempt. Toledo must replace their starting quarterback and all 5 on the offensive line. They are experienced in the receiver position. Junior Tucker Gleason Will start at quarterback. He saw limited action the past 3 seasons with a career 49% completion rate, 7.2 yards per pass attempt. He produced good performance in his opener against an FCS school. The Minutemen dropped a 14-point decision at Eastern Michigan. Their pass defense in the opener is troubling. Toledo is a better MAC team. Gleason experienced in the program, plus as well as having his playmakers in the passing game. The play will be Toledo minus 18.5. Iowa State and Iowa college football pick. This one goes off on Saturday. Iowa State 1-0 after their 21-3 home win to FCS North Dakota. The Cyclones finished at 7-6 last year for head coach Matt Campbell. They put up 26 points per game in 2023 with 4 yards per rush, 256 passing yards, 8.5 yards per pass attempt. On defense, they held the opponents at 24 points, 3.9 yards per rush, and only 56% completion rate, 6.8 yards per pass attempt. They returned 10 starters on offense, 9 on defense. Quarterback Rocco Beck returns at quarterback. Last season, he completed 63% of his passes, 8.5 yards per pass attempt. He put up strong numbers in his opener against FCS North Dakota. The Hawkeyes are 1-0 after their 40-0 home win to FCS Illinois State. Iowa finished at 10-4 last season for head coach Kirk Ferentz. The Hawkeyes returns 10 starters on offense, 8 to the defense. They put up 15 points per game with 3.4 yards per rush. The passing game was inaccurate and inefficient. Defensively, they held opponents at 15 points per game, 3.1 yards per run. Opponents completed only 56% of their passes against them, 5.1 yards per pass attempt. Cade McNamara returns this season after being injured in 2023. He had a career 61% completion percentage with 7.4 yards per pass attempt. The numbers were way down in his 5 appearances last year. He had a good debut against FCS opponent. A healthy McNamara and the change in offensive coordinator are the key here. Hawkeyes are experienced and have performed well over the years in their home stadium. Play Iowa -3. Michigan State and Maryland college football pick for action on Saturday. Michigan State is 1-0 after their 16-10 home win to FAU. Spartans put up 293 offensive yards, 179 rushing for 4.8 yards per rush. They turned it over 3 times. On defense, they allowed 248 yards to the Owls with 132 rushing for 2.8 yards per rush. Aiden Childs hit 10 of 24 passes for 114 yards and 2 interceptions. Maryland 1-0 after their 50-7 home win to Connecticut. The Terrapins gained 629 yards, 248 rushing for 5.4 yards per rush. They forced 3 turnovers, and on defense, they allowed 310 yards to the Huskies with 88 rushing for 2.9 yards per run. Billy Edwards, 20 of 27 for 311 yards and 2 touchdowns. Terrapins' offensive production was impressive. Michigan State young quarterback ineffectiveness against FAU not encouraging for this road spot here. Neither were the 3 turnovers. Play Maryland -9.5. UTSA and Texas State college football pick. This one here on Saturday. UTSA improved to 1-0 after their 28-16 home win to Kennesaw State. The Roadrunners put up 416 yards, 76 rushing for 2.2 yards a carry. They went only 4 of 14 on third down. On defense, they held the Owls to 253 yards with 51 rushing for 1.3 yards a carry. Owen McCown completed 28 of 38 passes for 340 yards and 3 touchdowns. Texas State 1-0 after their 34-27 home win to FCS Lamar. The Bobcats went 8-5 last year for head coach G.J. Kinney. They returned at 7 starters on offense. For the defense, they put up 33 points a game last year. They gained 440 yards offensively per game with 4.2 yards per rush. The passing game produced 66% completion rate, 8 yards per pass attempt. Defensively, they allowed 33 points a game with 397 yards. Teams rushed for 4.1 yards per game against them with 242 passing yards, 7.6 yards per pass attempt. James Madison transferred Jordan McLeod will start at quarterback. Last year, he completed 68% of his passes, 9 yards per pass attempt. He passed for 35 touchdowns, 10 picks. Had a huge day last week against his FCS opponent. Quarterback situation is sound with the Bobcats beyond McLeod. McCown was effective in his opener for the Roadrunners. There'll be lots of passing with points put up in this game. The defense is a question mark here for Texas State. play UTSA and Texas State over 64. Middle Tennessee State and Ole Miss college football pick. This one goes off on Saturday. Middle Tennessee State 1-0 after their 32-25 home win to FCS Tennessee Tech. The Blue Raiders finished at 4-8 last year. Head coach Derek Mason in his first season with the team will have 4 players returning on offense, 3 to the defense. They put up only 23 points per game last year, 3.6 yards per rush. They completed 66% of their pass attempts, 7.2 yards per pass attempt. On defense, Middle Tennessee State allowed 29 points per game, 3.9 yards per pass attempt. They allowed 254 passing yards, 7 yards per pass attempt. Nicholas Vitadio turns at quarterback for his 4th year at the program. Last season, he completed 67% of his passes, 7.2 yards per pass attempt. Last week, he completed 57% of his passes, 6 yards per pass attempt against his FCS opponent. Ole Miss 1-0 after their 76-0 home win to FCS Furman. The Rebels went 11-2 in 2024 for Lane Kiffin. Returning our 10 starters on offense, 10 to the defense. They put up 32 points per game last season, 4.3 yards per rush. Quarterback play was effective. On defense, the Rebels held opponents to 24 points a game, 4.1 yards per rush. Opponents completed 61% of their passes against them, 7.4 yards per pass attempt. Jackson Dart returns under center. Last year, he completed 65% of his passes with 9.4 yards per pass attempt. He came off a huge performance in the opener against his FCS opponent last week. Tough spot for this inexperienced Blue Raiders team, facing one of the projected best offensive teams in the nation. Giving up 25 points to an FCS team last week for Middle Tennessee State, not encouraging. Play Ole Miss minus 41.5. Marshall and Virginia Tech college football pick Saturday. Marshall 1-0 after their 45-3 home win to FCS Stony Brook. The Thundering Herd finished at 6-7 last season. Charles Huff will have 5 starters back on offense, 5 to the defense. They put up only 23 points per game last season, 3.7 yards per rush. The passing game generated only 6.8 yards per attempt. On defense, the Thundering Herd allowed 30 points per game, 4.5 yards per run. They held opposing quarterbacks at 59% completions, 7 yards per pass attempt. Senior quarterback Stone Earl starts at quarterback as he transferred in from North Texas. He saw limited work the past 2 seasons, completing 56% of his passes, 6.6 yards per pass attempt, averaging 5.3 yards per rush. He had 2 touchdown passes in the win against an FCS opponent, but averaged only 6.1 yards per pass attempt. Virginia Tech 0-1 after their 27-24 road defeat to Vandy. The Hokies gained 271 yards with 181 rushing for 3.8 yards per rush. On defense, they allowed 397 yards to the Commodores with 322 passing yards, 9.5 yards per pass attempt. Kyron Jones hit 22 of 33 for 322 yards with a touchdown and pick. The Hokies' pass defense an issue. Jones is probably shaking off that leg injury, which actually was reported as cramping. The running back, Tootin, is questionable. The Hokies got their offense going in the second half. Play Marshall and Virginia Tech over 52. Action on Saturday. Central Michigan here 1-0 after their 66-10 home win to Central Connecticut State. Chippewas finished at 5-7 last season for head coach Jim McElwain, who's in his 6th season. The team returned 7 starters on offense, 6 to the defense. They put up just 21 points per game last year with 4.2 yards per rush. The passing game sat in the bottom quartile of college football. On defense, they surrendered 30 points per game, 395 yards as well. Teams rushed for 4.7 yards a carry against them with 225 yards passing for 8 yards per pass attempt. Many of their playmakers returned. Senior quarterback Joe Labus is under center. He last saw action in the Iowa Bowl, in Iowa for that bowl game in the 2022 season, hitting 14-24 for 139 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had a big performance in their win against FCS foe against their FCS foe. Now FIU, they're 0-1, a 31-17 road defeat to Indiana. Panthers gained just 182 yards, just 1.8 yards per rush. They allowed 414 yards to the Hoosiers, 234 rushing for 5.9 yards per carry. Keon Jenkins, 20-29 passing for 129 yards and a touchdown with a pick. A sophomore started last year as a true freshman. FIU quarterback play remains inefficient under Jenkins, a bigger test for Labus, who couldn't win the starter's job in Iowa and now heading to a road game trying to improve a poor passing game from last year. Play Central Michigan FIU under 51.5. East Carolina and Old Dominion college football pick. This one here Saturday. East Carolina 1-0 after their 42-3 home win against FCS school at Norfolk State. The Pirates finished at 2-10 for head coach Mike Houston last year. The team returned 7 starters on offense, 7 to the defense. They averaged 15 points per game in 2023 with 269 yards. A poor run game with a passing game that sat near the bottom of college football. Defensively, they held foes to 24 points per game, only 3.5 yards per rush. They did allow 8 yards per pass completion. The defense picks up 5 transfers to help fill the holes. Miami transfer Jake Garcia starts at quarterback. At Miami, he completed 61% of his passes, 7.4 yards per pass attempt. He put up good numbers against FCS school last week, but threw for 3 picks. Old Dominion drops at 23-19. A 23-19 road defeat to South Carolina. Monarchs put up 305 yards, 108 rushing for 3.2 yards a carry. They turned it over 4 times. On defense, they held the Gamecocks at 288 yards with 174 rushing, 3.1 yards a carry. Grant Wilson completed 22 of 38 passes for 197 yards with a touchdown and 2 picks. He lost 2 fumbles. East Carolina passing is the major concern here after being a near bottom performer last season. Garcia's 3 picks against Norfolk State is not a good sign. Wilson is an experienced quarterback for the Monarchs. ODU defense deserve a better fate by holding South Carolina under 300 yards. Play Old Dominion here -1. South Alabama and Ohio college football pick. This one here on Saturday. South Alabama 0-1 after their 52-38 home defeat to North Texas. The Jaguars gained 582 yards, 150 rushing for 4.5 yards a carry. On defense, they surrendered 550 yards to the Mean Green with 446 passing yards for 10.6 yards per pass attempt. Sophomore quarterback Gio Lopez completed 26 of 49 for 432 yards with 3 touchdowns. He rushed for 52 yards and a touchdown. Ohio 0-1 after the 38-22 road defeat to Syracuse. The Bobcats put up 436 yards, 255 rushing for 6.5 yards a carry. On defense, they allowed 480 yards to the Orange with 354 passing yards for 8.9 yards per pass attempt. Parker Navarro hit 18 of 30 for 181 yards. Ohio rushing numbers were impressive here against a power conference school in Syracuse, but given up 550 yards to North Texas, offense is concerned here laying these points. So we'll take a look at Ohio here at +2. Sam Houston State and UCF college football pick. This one Saturday. All right, we've got Sam Houston 1-0 after a 34-14 road win at Rice as a dog here. Bearcats put up 407 yards, 178 rushing for 3.9 yards a carry. On defense, they limited the Owls to 274 yards with 47 on the ground for 2.6 yards a carry. The team had a +2 turnover margin. Hunter Watson at 16 of 27 passing for 229 yards and 2 touchdowns. It was a junior's first ever action. UCF 1-0 after their 57-3 home win to FCS New Hampshire. The Knights finished 6-7 last year. They returned 6 starters to the offense, 8 on defense. UCF put up 30 points per game in 2023 with 477 yards. The team rushed for 5.7 yards a carry with efficient passing numbers. Defensively, they allowed 27 points a game with 405 yards. Opponents rushed for 5 yards per carry on them, but they did defend the pass well. Arkansas transfer KJ Jefferson at quarterback. Last season, he completed 64% of his passes, 7.1 yards per pass attempt. He's a threat to run, but averaged only 2.8 yards a carry in 2023. He completed only half his passes against FCS foes last week. UCF brought a new defensive coordinator, Ted Roof, in to improve this unit. Hunter Watson, first assignment against a power conference team, and it's a back-to-back road spot. KJ Jefferson, dual threat match matched up with Malzahn. Looks like a pretty good marriage there between the two, head coach and quarterback. Play UCF -21.5. One second, we're going to get the next game will be USF and South Alabama. Here we go. USF and Alabama college football pick. This one here on Saturday. USF 1-0 after their 48-3 home win to FCS Bethune-Cookman. South Florida went 7-6 last year for head coach Alex Golesh. The team returns 10 starters on offense, 8 to the defense. They average 31 points per game, 461 yards as well. Their passing game was efficient. Defensively, the Bulls gave up 33 points and 436 yards a game. They held foes at 4.3 yards a carry, but struggled defending the pass. Byron Brown last year completed 64% of his passes with 7.7 yards per pass attempt. He rushed for 809 yards, 11 touchdowns. His numbers were good in the opener against his FCS opponent. Alabama 1-0 after their 63-0 home win at Western Kentucky. The Crimson Tide gained 600 yards, 334 rushing for 7.1 yards per carry. Defensively, they held the Hilltoppers to 145 yards, 3 of 18 on third down with 42 rushing yards, just 1.6 yards a carry. UL Monroe, 7 of 9 passing, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. He rushed for 79 yards and 2 scores as well. USF offense showed improvement last season under Brown. USF was competitive against the Crimson Tide, albeit on the wrong end of a 17-3 home loss last year. Brown developed well after that early season loss, play USF plus 31. Next game will be Buffalo and Missouri. Just give us a second as we get to it. Right, here we go. Buffalo and Missouri college football pick. This one here Saturday. Buffalo 1-0 after their 30-13 home win to FCS Lafayette. The Bulls went 3-9 last year. Pete Lembo in his first year with the program. He's going to have just 3 starters on offense, 7 to the defense. They put up 19 points and 315 yards last year. Buffalo rushed for 4.4 yards a carry with inefficient passing game in 2023. On defense, they allowed 26 points and 359 yards a game. The team held opponents to 176 passing yards for 6.7 yards per pass attempt. Gone are the starting quarterback with many playmakers. Senior quarterback C.J. Ogbonna is the starting quarterback. He was ineffective in limited work last year with the Bulls and in his 2 years at Southeastern Missouri as well. He did pass for 2 touchdowns and 195 yards in their win against their FCS opponent. Missouri 1-0 after a 51-0 home win to FCS Murray State. Tigers finished at 11-2 in 2023 for head coach Eli Drinkwitz. Returning are 9 starters on offense, 5 of the defense. They put up 32 points and 432 yards per game last year. The team rushed for 4.4 yards a carry and was effective in the passing game. Defensively, Missouri held opponents to 22 points and 348 yards a game. They held opponents to 4 yards per carry, 6.9 yards per pass attempt. Senior quarterback Brady Cook returns. Last year, he completed 66% of his passes with 9 yards per pass attempt. Cook comes off a strong game in their win against the FCS foe. All right, Missouri offense looks strong again this year. Cook's efficiency very good here, and a huge discrepancy between these 2 quarterbacks. Ogbonna struggled to complete half his passes when he was quarterback at the FCS school when he first came into college football. Player will be Missouri minus 34.5. Okay, next game is going to be Virginia and Wake Forest. So we'll find the graphic here and put it up for you guys. Here we go. Virginia and Wake Forest college football pick this one Saturday. Virginia 1-0 after their 34-13 home win to FCS school Richmond. The Cavs finished at 3-9 last season for head coach Tony Elliott. The Cavaliers returned 8 starters on offense, 8 to the defense. They put up 23 points per game in 2023 with 361 yards of offense. Virginia rushed for 2.9 yards a carry, 252 passing yards, 7.5 yards per pass attempt. Defense has struggled here, giving up over 35 points and 427 yards a game. Opponents rushed for 5.2 yards a carry against them with 7.3 yards per pass attempt. Anthony Calandria starts at quarterback last year. He completed 62% of his passes, 8 yards per pass attempt. Calandria was productive last week in the win against their FCS opponent. Wake Forest 1-0 after their 45-13 home win to FCS school NCAA. Demon Deacons finished at 4-9 for head coach Dave Clawson. That has 7 starters return on offense, 7 to the defense. The team in 2023 put up only 19 points per game with 319 yards. They rushed for only 3.4 yards a carry and were inefficient in the passing game. Defensively, the Demon Deacons allowed 28 points and 399 yards a game. Opponents rushed for 4.3 yards a carry against them with 240 yards passing, 8.3 yards per pass attempt. Malcolm Kern starts at quarterback. Kern, a senior that spent his career at the school, seen limited action. Last year in 4 games, he completed 62% of his passes, 7 yards per pass attempt. He attempted just 8 passes last week in their win against their FCS foe. Virginia defense really bad last season, and that is a lot to fix there. Kern in the program for 4 seasons, a plus for the Demon Deacons. We'll take Wake Forest minus 1.5. Kansas and Illinois college football picks Saturday. Kansas 1-0 after their 48-3 home win to FCS school Lindenwood. The Jayhawks finished at 9-4 last season for head coach Lance Leopold in his fourth season. Returning our 7 starters on offense, 6 to the defense, they put up 34 points a game and 440 yards on offense last year. That team rushed for 5.3 yards a carry and were efficient in the passing game. Jalen Daniels will start at quarterback. He returned from an injury last year. In parts of the past 3 seasons, he held a career 68% completion rate, 8.5 yards per pass attempt. Daniels was efficient in the win last week against FCS school in Illinois. They're 1-0, a 45-0 home win to FCS school Eastern Illinois. The final line went 5-7 last year for head coach Brett Bielema, returning our 6 starters on offense, 7 to the defense. They put up 24 points per game a year ago, 3.8 yards per rush. Illinois had an efficient passing attack. On defense, they allowed 29 points and 378 yards per game. Opponents rushed for 3.9 yards per carry against them, with 220 yards passing for only 6.9 yards per pass attempt. Luke Altmaier returns at quarterback. Last year with the school, he completed 65% of his passes, 7 yards per pass attempt. He came off a big performance last week facing that FCS school. Altmaier run threat. It fits Bielema in that ground and pound style of game that he coaches. His passing was effective. They defended well last season. We'll take Illinois here at +5. Georgia Southern and Nevada college football pick. This one here on Saturday. All right, Georgia Southern 0-1 after their 56-45 home defeat to Boise State. The Eagles gained 461 yards with 139 rushing for 4 yards per carry. They allowed 651 yards to the Broncos with 371 rushing yards for 10.6 yards per carry. J.C. French hit 28-50 for 322 yards with 2 touchdowns. Nevada 1-1 after their 28-26 road win at Troy. Wolfpack posted 393 yards with 214 rushing for 6.3 yards per carry. Defensively, they allowed 391 yards to the Trojans with 191 rushing for 5.3 yards a carry. Brendan Lewis hit on 17-20 for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns. Chuba Purdy could be available following his shoulder injury, but Lewis has been efficient under center. Wolfpack have been better in the run defense in the path of these 2 teams. Eagles allowed 71% completion rate and 13 yards per pass attempt. The run and pass defense by Georgia Southern just too poor to back in this high elevation road environment. Play Nevada +1. San Jose and Air Force college football pick. This one here for Saturday. San Jose State 1-0 after their 42-24 home win to FCS Sacramento State. Spartans finished at 7-6 in 2024. First-year head coach Ken Yamatulo has 3 starters on offense, returning with 4 on defense. The Spartans put up 29 points per game last year with a strong ground attack and were able to make plays downfield in the passing game. On defense, they allowed 365 yards with 4.7 yards per carry and only 6.9 yards per pass attempt. Emmett Brown is a Washington State transfer who attempted 4 passes last year. He was effective in the win last week, passing for 298 yards, 8.8 yards per pass attempt. Air Force 1-0 after their 21-6 home win to FCS Merrimack. The Falcons went 9-4 last season for head coach Troy Calhoun. Only 2 starters on offense returned with 4 on defense. Last year, the Falcons put up 27 points per game along with 358 yards. They ran for 5 yards a carry and were not an efficient passing team. Defensively, they held foes at 19 points and 287 yards. They defended both the run and pass well. John Busha is a quarterback in his junior year. He attempted 19 passes last year in 3 games. Last week, he threw for only 71 yards and a 43% completion rate. Both teams lack experience. It'll be a challenge for the Spartans defense to defend this option attack by the Falcons. The Hornets and FCS team were able to put up 24 points and rush for 4.3 yards a carry on the Spartans defense. Sacramento State averaged 8.5 yards per pass attempt on San Jose. Play Air Force -3.5. UAB and UL Monroe college football pick for Saturday. UAB 1-0 after their 41-3 home win to FCS Alcorn State. The Blazers have finished 4-8 last year under head coach Trent Dilfer. Now returning our 7 starters on offense, 4 to the defense. The team put up 29 points per game in 2023 with 4.5 yards per rush and a highly efficient passing game. On defense, they allowed 40 points a game along with 460 yards. Opponents rushed for 5.3 yards a carry on them and completed 63% of their passes with 258 yards passing per game. Their top rusher and receiver has exited. Jacob Zeno returns at quarterback. Last year, he completed 73% of his passes for 8.2 yards per pass attempt. He had 215 yards passing in the win last week, but only 6.5 yards per pass attempt. UL Monroe is 1-0 after their 30-14 home win to FCS Jackson State. They went 2-10 last year, and head coach Bryant Vincent in his first season. The team returns 2 starters on offense, 5 on defense. The Warhawks were a very poor offensive team in 2023, averaging 17 points per game, 3.9 yards per rush. The pass game was ineffective. Defensively, they allowed 37 points and 459 yards per game. Opponents rushed for 4.3 yards a carry against them and completed 64% of their passes for 283 yards per game. General Booty starts at quarterback. Yeah, that's his name. The junior saw his first ever work in college football last week in the win against his FCS opponents, throwing for only 14 times. These are just 2 very poor looking defensive teams. Zeno's passing accuracy and downfield numbers to his receivers points to a high point total. With another season under Dilfer, UL Monroe should be able to run on this Blazers team and get points on that board. Play UAB and UL Monroe over 53.5. Tulsa and Arkansas State college football pick. This one Saturday. Tulsa 1-0 after their 62-28 home win at Northwestern State. Tulsa went 4-8 last year for head coach Kevin Wilson. 8 starters returned back on offense, 4 on defense. The Golden Hurricanes struggled on the offensively with 22 points per game with 4 yards per rush. Pass attack was ineffective. Defensively, they surrendered 36 points per game, 4.9 yards per run. They were very poor defending the pass. Redshirt freshman Kirk Francis starts at quarterback. He saw action in 4 games last season, hitting 56% of his passes with 8 yards per pass attempt. He had really strong numbers in the opening win. Arkansas State 1-0 after their 34-31 home win to FCS Central Arkansas. The Redwoods finished at 6-7 in 2023 for head coach Butch Jones. The team has 10 starters back on offense, 6 on defense. They put up 27 points a game last year with 364 yards and 3.8 yards per carry. Accuracy was an issue in the passing game, but they did make big plays downfield with 8 yards per pass attempt average. Defense was poor a year ago, and they allowed 32 points per game, 455 yards. Teams rushed for 4.8 yards a carry, allowed 69% completion rate. Sophomore Jalen Rayner returns under center, really looking to rebuild on a freshman campaign where he completed 58% of his passes, 8.9 yards per pass attempt. He had 5 rushing touchdowns, threw 47 times last week, poor accuracy, but 317 yards. A poor running game coupled with inefficient passing, the concern for the Robo side. Tulsa has an efficiency issue with their quarterback situation as well. Tulsa is a rebuilding. Play Tulsa and Arkansas State under 65.5. Louisiana and Kennesaw State college football pick Saturday. Monroe. Louisiana 1-0 after their 40-10 home win to FCS Grambling. Team finished at 6-7 last year for head coach Michael DeSormo, returning our 7 starters on offense, 8 to the defense. A pretty good offensive team in 2023 that averaged 32 points, 4.8 yards per run, and efficient passing. Defensively, they allowed 30 points and 402 yards a game. Teams rushed for 4 yards a carry on them, 63% completion rate, 7.5 yards per pass attempt. Ben Wooldridge will start at quarterback. The past 2 seasons, he completed 56% of his passes with 6.9 yards per pass attempt. He put up strong numbers in the opener. Kennesaw State 0-1 with their 28-16 road defeat at UTSA. The Owls put up 253 yards, 51 rushing, 1.3 yards per carry. They allowed 416 yards to Roadrunners, 340 passing, 8.9 yards per pass attempt. Davis Bryson hit on 14-28 for 202 yards. The Owls passing defense, the concern, facing an experienced quarterback here, and really supported by a good running game. The Raging Cajuns defense poor last season. Bryson was able to throw for over 200 yards in his opener and is encouraging in the program's first game as an FBS program. Play Louisiana and Kennesaw State over 46.5. Western Michigan and Ohio State college football pick Saturday. Western Michigan 0-1 after their 28-14 road defeat to Wisconsin. The Broncos gained 261 yards, 120 rushing for 3.6 yards a carry. Defensively, they allowed 388 yards to the Badgers with 5.3 yards per rush. Western Michigan limited the Badgers to 5.3 yards per pass attempt. Hayden Wolf 12-18 for 141 yards and a pick. Ohio State 1-0 after their 52-6 home win to Akron. The Buckeyes put up 440 yards with 170 rushing for 5.2 yards per carry. They held the Zips to 177 yards with 1.3 yards per rush on 35 carries. Will Howard hit 17-28 for 228 yards and 3 touchdowns. Wolf's inefficiency a concern for this Broncos team. They face a better defensive team in Ohio State here Western Michigan is experienced on defense. The Broncos will give more resistance than Zips will. Play Western Michigan and Ohio State under 54.5. Colorado and Nebraska college football pick Saturday. Colorado 1-0 after their 31-26 home win to FCS North Dakota State. Deion Sanders is in his second season with the team, returning our 8 starters on offense and defense. The team put up 28 points a game last year, only 2.3 yards per rush. They were an efficient passing team on defense. They allowed 35 points per game, struggling in both run and pass defense. George Sanders returns under center. He completed 69% of his passes last year for 7.5 yards per pass attempt. This was they had poor protection as well. He put up huge numbers in the opener. Now Nebraska 1-0 after a 40-7 victory at home to UTEP. The Cornhuskers in the game put up 507 yards with 223 rushing for 4.7 yards a carry. They held UTEP to 205 yards with 2.3 yards a carry. Freshman quarterback Dylan Raiola completed 19 of 27 passes for 123 yards, 2 touchdowns. Huge test for the Buffaloes' offensive and defensive lines in this road spot. Colorado's poor running game that concerned the Buffs allowed 26 points to an FCS school and couldn't separate to a double-digit win here. So we'll look here at Nebraska minus 6.5. Tennessee and NC State college football pick Saturday. Game played in Charlotte. Tennessee 1-0 after their 69-3 home win to FCS Chattanooga. Tennessee finished at 9-4 for head coach Josh Heupel in 2023. 6 starters return on offense, 5 to the defense. Their offense produced 32 points a game with 447 yards a game. They rushed for 8 yards per carry with effective passing game. Defensively, they held foes to 21 points and only 3.3 yards per rush with above average pass defense. Quarterback Nico Iamaleava starts. He saw a little bit of work in 5 games last season, hitting 62% of his passes with 7 yards per attempt and 3 touchdowns. He was effective last week in the opener. NC State 1-0 after the 38-21 home win to FCS Western Carolina. The team went 9-4 in 2023 with head coach Dave Duren. They returned 7 starters on offense, 5 to the defense. The offense produced only 25 points per game last year, 4.2 yards per rush, and an effective passing game. Wolfpack defended well, allowing 22 points per game, 4.2 yards a carry. They held opponents at 6.6 yards per pass attempt. Now, Coastal Carolina transfer Grayson McCall starts at quarterback. Last year, he completed 67% of his passes with 8.6 yards per pass attempt. He suffered through an injury last year. McCall had a strong performance in his opener. The Wolfpack defense a concern here against a good Tennessee team. The battle up front would favor the SEC team with the Vols. The Volunteers run game, the key here, which aids in big plays in the passing game. Play here will be on Tennessee minus 9. Looking for my best bets? Click the link in the description to get to TonySpace.com and make sure you subscribe to his channel for more free pick videos.